I will be talking about this topic, peer assessment, and it starts with this. This is what happens now. Teachers are solely responsible for evaluating and assessing the work of their students. It's been like this since the beginning of time, but does it have to be this way? Because this technique has some problems, right? Is it fair? How fair is a system that relies on a single person? Well, even if the teacher tries the best to be fair, there are environmental issues that may influence his judgments. For example, at the beginning of the day, the assessment will be different than at the end of the day when he is tired, already exhausted, without patience. I won't even go into the more sensitive issue of discrimination or bias towards some students. So this may be a problem. The other that Professor Rosa already talked is when you have large classrooms. For example, myself, I have classes with 200 students. And the more students you have, the longer and harder will become the assessment process, of course. And even with the help of assistants, it's still a very time-consuming task. And finally, for the lack of a better term, I would say the grading process is somehow authoritarian, right? Because a single person exercises his authority without taking into account the opinion of the others. The students don't participate in the process. And current knowledge says that the students' participation is crucial to their learning. So that's why we have to think this differently. With digital tools, it's now possible to change this, putting students in charge of the assessment process. For teachers, this may sound scary, I know, but I've been experimenting with this technique for 2 years now, and I had great success. Let me tell you how it works. So the process is divided into 4 phases. The first one, students submit their work into the digital platform. This is the usual stuff. Now it's where things start becoming different. Its submission is assigned to several students for reviewing. So the students are not only submitting their work, they are also receiving the work of others to review. Then they have to analyze these assigned submissions and fill an assessment matrix. This assessment matrix is done by the teacher. And finally, the original student gets an individual report with the reviews and possibly the grades given by our colleagues. Throughout the process, anonymity is preserved. This is very important. I will now speak about each phase in more detail. So, first one, submission phase. Each student submits their work into the digital platform. I myself use Moodle to do this, but there are other platforms that allow this peer assessment technique. Work can be anything as long as it is in digital format. Even a drawing in a sheet of paper, not a drawing in the computer, can be easily transformed into digital format. It just take a picture, upload to the digital platform. So no excuses for this. The work itself must be anonymous. This is very important. Unlike the other works that students are used to, where they usually sign the work, they put their student number, student name, here they can't put anything. The platform will just know which works belongs to whom. Now, the second phase is where the work is distributed among the reviewers. As you can see here, the student A received the work of student B, C, and D. Student B received the work of A, C, and D. The reviewers don't know who is the submitter. This is very important. This letter doesn't show up to student A. He doesn't know. It just sees the contents of each file, for example, and analyzes it. This distribution can be random, automatically done by the platform, or manual. the teacher assigns specific works for specific students. The number of reviewers is also configurable. I myself use 3 reviewers normally. So each reviewer reviews 3 works, and each work is reviewed by 3 students. I think this is a good number. More than that, the students will start to complain, because if a student has to analyze like 5 works or 6 works, it will be very time consuming, and probably the quality of his assessment will probably decrease. In the assessment phase is when the students play the role of the teacher. So they analyze the works and they fill in the assessment matrix, which is a set of previously defined criteria, and mark each work. For example, student A thought that this work didn't fill the requirements requirement 1, but it was satisfactory for requirement 2 and 3. And for this work, it failed in requirement 1 and 2, but it succeeded in requirement 3, for example. This assessment can be like this, can be quantitative, like a grade from 1 to 10, from 1 to 20, or can be qualitative. So the student only comments textually what he thinks about the work. It is important that teachers be vigilant to prevent injustice. You know that there are students that are overly generous, right? And others are overly harsh or demanding, or others just don't care and fill the assessment matrix with random values. This is not common, but it can happen. So in this case, the teacher can intervene in the process. Finally, the publication phase, the original student sees what reviewers thought about his submission. He sees this matrix, for example, you can see here that each reviewer assessed differently his work. That is okay, somehow okay. The anonymity of the reviewers is preserved, as I already said. So this student doesn't know who said this about his work, or this or this. And the final grade is the average of a reviewer's grades. And this finished the process. This is interesting because theoretically, it can be more fair than traditional single teacher assessment, right? Because for the reasons outlined in the beginning. And as you have more reviewers, the more fair the process becomes. But there is an additional optional step that I want to talk about, where the platform tries to understand which reviewers did the best job, not the students, but the reviewers. When they were playing the role of the teacher, which one did the best job? So how does this work? The assessments are compared, not the work, okay? The assessment matrix for the same work from different reviewers is compared, and the system tries to find a mean assessment. When there are differences from the mean assessment, this penalizes somehow the reviewer. So the system thinks that this student was not a so good reviewer because she told a different thing than his colleagues about item 1. In this case, the difference is not critical, but sometimes this is a very different and critical differences, and this will penalize the students that are not careful giving these grades. So in the end, the student has both the regular grades for his submission and the reviewer grade for his reviewing, which is interesting. And the balance between the two, I think it's very interesting and works different skills in the student. The hard skills are evaluated by the regular grade, and the soft skills somehow are evaluated with the reviewer grade. So what is the summary of this after working with this process? I think one of the benefits, it scales really well. Assessments are more fair as more students are added to the process. So this is really good. I'd say this was a blessing for my 200 students classes. Also, this is very important. It fosters the critical thinking skills of the students, which is highly valued and should be incentivized more in higher education. And finally, teachers share the burden of evaluation with the students. This is such a nice benefit. It eases my mind to think that the assessment process is no longer solely dependent on me. And I also stop receiving complaints such as, oh, you are too demanding, the teacher is too demanding, I deserve a better grade. No, because now they have to complain to their colleagues. Their colleagues were the teachers, you know, because I think this is really interesting. So this finished my presentation. I hope you understood the idea and you liked it. And I'm open to your questions. No questions? Okay, I think I'll stop this. So again, thank you everyone for being in this webinar. I hope you liked it. As I told you, this has been recorded and will be available soon. Okay, I have a question in chat. Do you have any negative feedback from students? Well, sometimes students give me negative feedback when they get low grades with this process, of course. But I tell them to go see what the reviewers, how the reviewers filled in the assessment matrix. And usually they don't complain anymore, because the process is very strict. It is very objective and very fair in its essence. Any more questions? Okay, thank you again. Hope you enjoyed it, and maybe we'll see each other again in the fourth webinar, which will be organized by Slovakia. And see you soon, everyone. Thank you.